I want to talk about a problem that we have in the United States that's getting really bad. Black people. We have so many of them, and I can't stand them. You lose them in the dark. They eat all your goddamn chicken and everything else that's wrong with them. I think we should have a new plague that gets rid of just black people. Because niggers are ridiculous. And they just need to go away. That's about it. Hate black people. But I'm not racist. So.
Hate to me is people using an electronic medium, computers, internet, cell phones, just any indirect way of spreading hate to somebody else. I actually see it very frequently at my job. I work in an after-school program with middle school level kids age, and there's kids who will be crying for no apparent reason, and you kind of find out that they're receiving text messages from someone else telling them that they hate them and that they're no good, that they're basically just spreading hate and not doing it in a direct way like face to face. Or it's a real gray area because you can't have direct consequences because sometimes it's hard to prove. You know, you can delete the posts or emails or texts or whatever. So realistically, there's not a whole lot you can do other than just try and directly target the other person. Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're like an institution like a school, or in my case an after school program, we take the records that we can get and then bring everybody who's involved together and then address the situation and then deal out consequences. It's a lot different if you're a parent, where you can take it to an institution like a school, but you can't always just directly deal with it. I mean, unless you happen to have the information for like the other students' parents and then talk to them directly. But other than that, it's really hard.
You just openly admitted it. You said, yes, I've turned guys down because of their looks, because they didn't look as good as I wanted to. That's right. Like you said, you're some fucking goddess. You're not a goddess, you're a skankist. You fucking stink. That fucking hole between your legs proves what you are. Stink. You think your fucking shit don't stink? It does. You know better than anybody else. You just proved it without a fucking shadow of a doubt. You said it out your own fucking mouth. It's everything I've been talking about to fucking begin with. I lost my youth because of your fucking bullshit attitude right there. You don't like the fact that I'm fucking out here telling the truth? Oh well, maybe you should stop and think about more than just your fucking selfish self. Because that's exactly what you're doing. This is all about your selfish self. Well, look who's talking. You come on and made a video whining yourself. So see, you're going to sit there and whine yourself. So that's supposed to be justified, right? What? Because you got a hole between your legs? No, you got stink between your legs. Have a nice fucking...
The one example I can think of is my brother reposting something that originated with some far right-wing political group, laying the blame of all of our society's ills at the feet of the poor and the underprivileged because they won't work, and further blaming all the helping organizations and people for perpetuating that. I think the fact that it's a reposting from an organization somehow removes personal responsibility from the person reposting. They're a member of a larger group, and in their eyes at least, a valid group, and it just takes any personal responsibility out of the picture. It's posted in this large sort of format. And I think what really makes it difficult is that it's a reposting from a larger group, which I think removes a lot of the personal responsibility, because that person can just turn around, point, and say, well, see, it's not just me, it's all of these other people, but we have no idea who all those other people are, so it is in a sense anonymous. You have no way of determining who's in that group. Further, you really have no way of determining what their basis is for making the claims they're making. So it's all very unfounded, very loose information that whoever's posting it can turn around and point to and say, well, this is an established group. You have a group, an organization disseminating information that models the hateful behavior, which is then reposted, which then further models it to whomever's looking at that post. And I think there's a lack of personal responsibility that happens with all of this reposting, and I think that perpetuates the hate, and there is no accountability.
Why should we fight online hate? In my view, online hate claws at the fabric of society and is trying to take over all the time. It causes violence, murder, abuse, war, and terror. It distorts thinking. It pits us against each other, and it wants to balkanize us. And it is not a banal or a harmless evil. Ultimately, it wants to do away with democracy and murder those it does not like.
Ubiquitous, compelling to, we cling to you like crazy glue and inject such a potency, it's best for all humanity. The spread of culture, the sword of progress, the vector of suffrage, a warm and septic breeze. The palm ventilation, the duty evocation, the blood of the hybrid, it's just a recipe. Reliving our ancestry, the frightful lack of harmony, our forefathers who led the way, their victims are still here today.
I think it's somebody using electronics or the internet to attack somebody, be hateful and mean and hurtful without having to confront them personally. Yeah, I deal with it a lot with my kids. I have middle school daughters, so I hear a lot about it. Facebook and texting, other kids sending them really cruel messages, and vice versa. I think it affects people really negatively, but doesn't really give them the communication that they need to actually see how they're affecting somebody else and the harm that they're doing. I think education. I think educating people on the effects of bullying and being mean and everything. I think without having that face-to-face communication and really seeing the result that your actions have, makes people be a lot more cruel and say things and do things that they may not say in person. So I think educating them on that, on the severity of it.
Well, if you're looking now on the internet and outside of the internet, we're not living in a very kind age. It seems everybody has some negative opinion about anybody and also relishes in sharing this opinion, often in an aggressive or abusive or foul manner, all in the name of freedom of speech. And logic is deemed to be nonsense, and debates are won by those who scream the loudest, and insulting others has almost become an imperative on the internet. And we noted how the development of, as it's called, Web 2.0 interactive social networking sites like MySpace and Facebook and video repositories like YouTube made it easier for users to post material, including hate. A growing number of young people from very different backgrounds are attracted to extremist views, and the internet caters for most of their needs. Presently, anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial, hate against Muslims and hate against homosexuals make up large part of all the online material that promotes violence, denies historical facts, poisons and recruits young people. And today's hatred on the internet has a larger breeding ground, perpetrator group and audience than ever before. Really the main problem right now is the mainstream. There's a vast group of unaffiliated citizens, internet users who post discriminatory or racist material on normal web forums and weblogs, and they're often airing populist views on migration, minorities, Islam, Jews, others, and that has become an excellent breeding ground.
Conflict's been around since the beginning of time. When a caveman got mad at his neighbor, he clubbed him.
Then they realized that clubbing each other was a little, how should I say, messy. So instead they realized that they could talk to each other to solve their problems. So they became civilized.
Then the current generation of adults showed up and decided to go back.
We see adults yelling, screaming, throwing tantrums, and just being downright disrespectful. And I'm not talking about felons or people who normally get in trouble. I'm talking about the average Joe.
They say, hey, freedom of speech, remember? Yeah. But what about decency, maturity, respect, self-control?
Yes, it seems that people are getting angry and out of control. They don't realize that young people are looking at them.
We punish our kids for back-talking, for acting out, but what do we show them? Talk however you feel like talking, to curse people out just to make your point across.
Listen and don't interrupt.
Because, you know, sometimes when other people are talking, we're always coming up with responses or rebuttals, already thinking of an argument to counter with theirs. So let's try not to do that. In order to really listen to what a person has to say, you really need to listen.
Give everyone the opportunity to be heard.
Don't dominate the conversation all the time, because if you're not letting anyone else get a word in edgewise, then you're not letting someone else's voice be heard. And you're also depriving yourself of being able to learn something from maybe what they have to say.